3 days after being run off their own floor in a lopsided 97-85 loss, the Washington Mystics delivered a statement of an entirely different kind. Traveling to Climate Pledge Arena for the second leg of a home-and-home set, Washington turned the tables on Seattle in dramatic fashion, dismantling the Storm 78-64 to even the season series and announce, in no uncertain terms, that the first meeting was an aberration rather than a preview of things to come. It was the kind of response performance that reveals more about a team's character than a dozen ordinary regular season wins, and it left plenty for fans, analysts, and the Mystics themselves to unpack in the hours that followed. To understand why this result qualifies as a genuine stun, context matters. Just 3 days earlier, on May 24th, Seattle had throttled Washington by 12 points in a game defined by an avalanche of free throws and a suffocating Storm defense in the second half. Natisha Hiedeman torched the Mystics for a career-tying 24 points. Rookie sensation Flau'jae Johnson chipped in a season-best 17, and Seattle made a season-high 13 three-pointers while shooting an eye-popping 94% from the free throw line as a team. Washington, by contrast, shot just 20% from beyond the arc and never found any offensive rhythm, trailing by double figures for the entire second half. It was a performance that raised legitimate questions about the Mystics' ability to compete with a Storm roster playing with genuine confidence at home. Those questions were answered emphatically on Wednesday night. Rather than wilting under the weight of the first loss, Washington regrouped, tightened its defense, and delivered arguably its most complete performance of the young season on the road against a team that had just beaten them soundly. If there was a singular engine behind Washington's turnaround, it was Shakira Austin. The Mystics' big continued her strong stretch of play with 18 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists, a stat line that reflects not just scoring punch, but complete two-way and playmaking impact from the front court. Austin's ability to control the interior on both ends proved decisive, particularly in a second quarter that effectively buried Seattle's chances of a repeat performance. Washington's defense clamped down in that period, holding the Storm to just 5 points through the first 8 minutes and 9 points for the frame overall. A staggering defensive stretch against a team that had shredded them for nearly 100 points just days before. Austin was at the center of that surge as well, contributing 14 points and 7 rebounds in the half alone as the Mystics built a commanding 48-29 lead heading into the break. That 19-point halftime cushion effectively flipped the emotional and tactical script of the series, putting Seattle in the unfamiliar position of chasing the game rather than dictating its terms. Adding an unexpected layer to the night's storyline was the return of Nneka Ogwumike, who made her season debut for Washington and delivered immediately, finishing with 14 points. Her presence gave the Mystics an added scoring dimension off the perimeter, and combined with Kiki Iriafen's continued frontcourt production, the two players contributed 27 points. Between them, a significant complement to Austin's interior dominance and proof that Washington's response was a full roster effort rather than a one-player rescue. Mission Onyemer's ability to step directly into rotation and produce at a high level speaks to both her own conditioning and the Mystics' depth, a quality that becomes increasingly valuable as the long WNBA season wears on, and injuries or fatigue begin testing rotations across the league. For a team looking to establish itself as more than a bottom-of-the-standings club, having a player who can walk into a hostile road environment on a back-to-back and immediately contribute is an encouraging sign. To their credit, the Storm did not go quietly. Seattle opened the second half with an 8-0 burst, clawing back into the game and briefly threatening to erase the deficit that had built over the first 20 minutes. But Washington had an answer ready. Kiki Iriafen's fourth bucket of the night restored a 13-point cushion, snuffing out Seattle's momentum before it could fully take hold. From there, Sonia Citron delivered a critical scoring burst of her own, netting 7 points in the frame, including a deep three-pointer that pushed Washington's lead back out to 18 points and effectively ended any realistic hope of a Seattle comeback. By the time the third quarter closed, the Mystics had forced 11 Seattle turnovers and held the Storm to a lackluster 36% shooting from the field through 3 quarters, carrying a commanding 66-45 lead into the fourth. Washington's defense, which had been picked apart just days earlier, had transformed into the story of the night, a complete reversal that underscored the growth and adjustments the coaching staff and players made in a remarkably short turnaround. The final box score tells a clear story of Washington's dominance in the areas that mattered most. Austin's near triple-double effort headlined a balanced attack that saw 4 different Mystics reach double-figure scoring. Defensively, the Mystics forced Seattle into repeated empty possessions, a stark contrast to the free-flowing, free-throw-heavy affair of the first meeting. Where Seattle had shot the ball efficiently and gotten to the line at will in the series opener, Washington's defense in the rematch denied those same easy opportunities, forcing the Storm into contested, low-percentage looks for long stretches of the second and third quarters. Perhaps most tellingly, Washington's ability to close out the third quarter with a 66-45 advantage removed any drama from the fourth, allowing the Mystics to manage the final minutes comfortably rather than sweat out a nervy finish. That kind of separation, built on sustained defensive pressure rather than one hot shooting stretch, tends to be the more sustainable formula for a team looking to string together wins over the course of a long season. For a Washington team still searching for consistency, this win carries weight beyond the standings. Bouncing back from a lopsided loss just 3 days later, on the road, against the same opponent, is precisely the kind of response that builds internal belief within a locker room. It suggests a coaching staff capable of making meaningful, in-series adjustments and a roster, with the mental toughness to avoid letting one bad outing snowball into a longer slide. Austin's continued emergence as a legitimate two-way force in the front court is arguably the most important subplot of the win. A player capable of anchoring the defense, controlling the glass, and contributing as a facilitator gives Washington a foundation to build around, regardless of who else is available on a given night. Her performance against Seattle adds to a growing body of evidence that she has taken a real step forward this season. Onyenwere's debut, meanwhile, offers the Mystics a fresh scoring option as the season progresses, while Citron's late third-quarter burst is a reminder of the shot-making ability she brings whenever the offense needs a lift. Iriafin's steady front-court production rounds out a supporting cast that, on this night at least, gave Washington the kind of complete performance that had been missing in the first meeting with Seattle. For Seattle, the loss serves as a cautionary tale about complacency. A team that looked dominant just 3 days earlier found itself outworked and outclassed in nearly every phase of the game, a reminder of how quickly momentum can shift in a league as competitive and unpredictable as the WNBA. The Storm will need to regroup quickly, particularly on the defensive end, where their inability to contain Washington's front court proved costly throughout the night. Washington's 78-64 win over Seattle stands as one of the more meaningful results of the Mystics season to date, not simply because of the final margin, but because of what it revealed about the team's resilience. Coming off a discouraging loss just days earlier, Washington responded with its most complete two-way performance of the year, anchored by a dominant all-around effort from Shakira Austin and buoyed by contributions up and down the roster, including an immediate impact from a returning Nneka Ogwumike. Games like this one rarely make headlines nationally, but for a team in the process of establishing its identity, this kind of response, a road win against a team that had just beaten them soundly, often matters more than the box score alone suggests. If Washington can carry the defensive intensity and balanced offensive execution from this performance into future matchups, it will have turned what began as a discouraging week into a meaningful step forward in its season-long development.